Hey y'all, Natalie here, and today is another layout for the 80/20 series with Sara Scraps. And we're diving into our stash here. And so what I did today was I took my entire stash and I thought, what does a lot of this have in common? So I kind of tried to group it visually. And what I saw a lot of was a lot of cork, a lot of this old world travel theme. And so I let the supplies dictate my photos this time. And so I grabbed all of those supplies that had something in common, and I decided to scrapbook pictures from Animal Kingdom. And it just so happens to be that I'm going to scrapbook a large number of photos, which is not something I typically do, and a double page spread, which is not something I typically do. So for those of you that follow me that do those types of things, here you go. But so I decided to do a background on my gel press. I like the way that acrylic paint looks on craft paper, which craft paper was the paper I chose that went well with those cork and old world type embellishments. What ends up happening is that you can't see a lot of it when I'm done, but that's okay. Nature of the process, nature of the process. So I put the yellow down, and then I add in some blue and some black. And I chose the yellow because of my shirt in the pictures, and then I just liked the blue and the black and the way they embellished. I want a grungy look, so I bring the black paint in through this chevron stencil. And so I'm working a lot on the background, but I am going to use a lot of the embellishments, which is the purpose of this series that we're doing, the 80/20. We're trying to do 80% embellishments to kind of work through our stash, right? So I pull that up, and that has a grungy feel that I'm looking for here. So I do the same thing on the other page. I'm not going to make you watch all of it because it's literally the exact same process. So here we have it. I have actually typed up my journaling because I did have a big story that I wanted to tell on this page. So I'm going to arrange the photos, and you'll see me take them off and put them back on 100 different times because I just wanted to make sure that I knew this is the design that I wanted, and so I wanted to make sure that everything around them was perfect. Then I find this stamp in my stash, and another thing to use, things that we have in our stash, not just embellishments, also stamps. So I had this mountains, and the layout is about Expedition Everest, the ride at Disney World in Animal Kingdom. So I decided to kind of add these to my background to grunge it up. And so I did first generation and second generation stamping. And there you see, just added a few mountains, and I like the way that looks. So we're going to add black splatters, of course. Why not? And then a lot of those end up getting hidden, and so I will go back at the end and add more. So now I'm trimming down the photos because I want to back them with patterned paper, but I also don't want to hide all of the background. So I'm going to trim them down a little bit to make them each fit on a rectangle of patterned paper on the page. And there you see, like I said, I put them on and take them off 100 times. So I'm measuring to see how big I want my rectangles to be. And they end up being that in order for them to peek out around the photos, they each need to be about 6 by 8. So I cut down this page to 6 by 8, which is perfectly in half, right? At least that way. And then I rough up the edges and I ink them up, and then I sew them down. I know, we're still not too embellishing, are we? We're almost there. So I pick up the edges after I've sewn them down to kind of like give it a lot of texture. And I won't make you watch all of that. And now let's get to actually laying some stuff down. So off camera, I'm in a minute, I'm going to back all of these photos with some white just to make them pop off the page and to kind of tie them all together well. Oh, and these chipboard alphas are from my stash as well. And instead of Expedition Everest, it's Expedition CryFest because my son was super excited to ride this ride, and then the end of it scared him. You can see in the ride photo, like my husband is laughing so hard because he was literally terrified. It kind of ruined the ride for me, but also it was so funny. Like after I knew that he was okay, he was completely fine. And by the time we had gotten through the gift shop, he was kind of like, all right, I think I want to ride again. And we were like, heck no. But that's okay. So I printed this journaling on vellum. And I was like, do I want to back it in black? Because if I backed it in black, it kind of just looked like white paper. So I should have just printed on white paper. But that's what I end up doing because I do like the way that it pops it. It ties the black in from the alphas to the journaling and later on onto the page. So anyway, I know a lot in the Scrap Gals, we have a lot of discussion like, are you a story scrapper? Do you start with the story? Do you start with the products? Do you start with the photos? And so I start all different ways. But in this one, because I wanted to but use my embellishments like Sara and I are doing in this series, I started with the product this time. But the product led me to these photos and a story that I've been meaning to tell, but I haven't. And so I'm really glad I did. So I loved that stamp. And so I decided to fussy cut that stamp. And now we're going to start embellishing for sure. So part of my stash was these Case of the Blouse, I think it's called, from Pink Fresh Studio. I had this die cuts stuck in my bag. So I pulled out a bunch of those because I thought, oh, there's got to be some good phrases or something for my son in there. And also I had these little wood veneers. And so I chose 3 of them because 3 is always a good rule. I'm showing you right there why those were probably on sale at Tuesday morning because they were upside down, that one. And then this is why you shouldn't keep stuff in your stash without using it. I go to use this cork piece and that little arrow was disintegrating when I was trying to pull it off. Use your stuff, y'all. But the frame worked, and so I did rip it in half so I could use it on one side of the page and the other side of the page just because I like a little bit of symmetry, but not because it's not symmetry because it doesn't match, but there's a little bit on each one. And then because in the photo down below there's a little red, so I found that postage stamp and I was like, oh, I have to use this, right? And I really want to use those Bow Bunny. I've had those forever and they had that old world travel feel, but they just didn't match my photos, so unfortunately I didn't use those. But I grabbed a tag out of a Pink Fresh line and I just needed a little bit of a subtitle there. There was just a hole there, so it needed to be filled. So I'm making sure to spread the red around the page, and I'll end up adding another heart at the top right over here, so you'll have a visual triangle of that red pop going. And so I'm being a little snarky here because with that little wood veneer piece, I think, what does it say? Hold on, I'm looking. It says Dare to Dream because he was so excited about riding this ride. And then I was like, womp. He was terrified. So when I'm using die cuts or handmade die cuts like that stamped images, I like to layer them. And again, a rule of 3 works well. 3 is visually pleasing. Anything like an odd number 2. 5 is good. So I'm going to add more splatter because you can't see a lot of what I added the first time. And then we're done. Make sure you head over to Sara's page today. I'm going to link down below. But she's also working with her stash, and I can't wait to see what she's come up with. This has really made me use my stash and more scrapbooking that I'm doing off camera, which is super exciting. And it even inspired another new series that I'm going to start doing with a cherry on top. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye.